Grandpa sat by the window now. That alone felt like a small miracle. The chair was wider than it needed to be, padded and careful, with footrests that held his legs in place. Someone had taken the time to angle it just right, so the light from outside touched his face without blinding him. Morning light, thin and pale, slipped across his hands and rested there. His hands were still large. That was something everyone noticed. They were thin, the skin loose, but the shape unchanged, as if they remembered who they had been long before the rest of him forgot. One hand rested on the arm of the chair, the other lay cramped and curled slightly in his lap. Grandpa did not speak. He had not spoken in a long time. When the family came to visit, they spoke anyway. They had learned to do that. At first it felt awkward, like talking into a room that didn't answer back. Over time it became something else. Less about response, more about presence. They took turns sitting near him. Someone always adjusted the blanket, even when it didn't need adjusting. Someone always mentioned the weather, because it was easy and safe and familiar. Outside the window, a tree moved gently in the breeze, its leaves doing what they had always done, year after year. Grandpa's eyes were open. Sometimes they followed movement, sometimes they didn't. No one ever said for certain what he saw, or if what he saw meant anything to him. They had stopped asking questions that didn't have answers. He had lost most of his teeth. When he smiled, and that happened rarely, and briefly, it looked incomplete, like a sentence missing words, but the smile itself still belonged to him. That part was unmistakable. They remembered his smile. They remembered him laughing once so hard he had to sit down. Remembered his voice filling rooms, telling the same story more than once, always with the same timing, always expecting laughter at the same places. Now the room held its breath around him. Moving him from the bed to the chair had taken weeks of effort, planning, gentle encouragement, careful hands. When it finally happened, it felt bigger than it should have, as if sitting upright again meant something more than the posture. As if it meant returning, even just a little. When they visited, they talked to him about ordinary things, about meals, about traffic, about a grandchild's school project. They avoided the past at first, afraid it might confuse him or hurt him somehow. Later, they stopped avoiding it. They talked about things he used to know well, boat rides, old neighbors, the way he always insisted on fixing things himself, even when it took longer than calling someone else. Sometimes when they spoke, his eyes seemed to focus, not sharply, but enough to make everyone pause. Was that something? No one said it out loud, but everyone thought it. They learned not to chase meaning too hard, learned that hope didn't have to look dramatic to be real. Grandpa breathed steadily. Machines hummed softly nearby, doing quiet work without comment. The room smelled faintly of soap and something medicinal, but also of the flowers someone had brought and placed near the window. A nurse passed through occasionally, efficient and kind, greeting him by name even though he did not answer. "Good morning, Grandpa," she always said. And always she waited a moment after saying it, just in case. When the family sat with him, they wondered things they never voiced. Did he know who they were? Did he recognize their voices, even if he couldn't place the names? Was his mind quiet now, or busy in ways they couldn't imagine? They wondered if he felt trapped, or peaceful, or somewhere else entirely. There was no way to know, but there was one thing they were certain of. He was still here. Not in the way he had been, not in the way they wished, but here enough to sit by a window, here enough to be talked to, here enough to matter. Sometimes someone would take his hand. His grip did not return the gesture, but his hand was warm, solid, real, and that was enough. On one visit, someone read to him, slowly, a book he used to like, The words moved through the room, settling gently, not asking anything in return. Grandpa's eyes closed for a moment, then opened again. No one said anything. No one tried to interpret it. They just kept reading. When it was time to leave, they always said goodbye. Not quickly, not casually. "We'll be back," someone would say, and they meant it. As they stepped out into the hallway, life continued at its normal speed, shoes on linoleum, voices drifting, doors opening and closing. Inside the room, Grandpa remained by the window. The light shifted slightly as the morning moved on. What he thought, no one knew. But they spoke to him anyway, and somehow that felt like the right thing to do.